Hello. Today we're here with Antonella Vagliente and are diving into Water and Sanitation Career podcast vlog. Thank you, Antonella, for joining us. And would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for inviting, Josh. My name is Antonella Vagliente. I am Director of Young Water Solutions. I'm originally from Argentina, but now living in Belgium.
Okay, thanks. So a question that I want to start off all of these interviews with is something that's kind of personal, but also related to our profession, the water profession. So is there a body of water that you identify with most and you could tell us why it's meaningful to you?
That's a very good question, I would say. I don't know if I'm always like this, but I try to relate to a river. Because I like the way that it's not a body of water that is still, but it's constantly flowing. It's adapting, right? I mean, it's adapting to the challenges, to the obstacles that are presented along the way. Not always easy, that easy to flow like a river, but I'd like to think that that's the body of water I identify with.
And is there a specific river that you have in mind?
There are certain parts of the Suquía River. That is a river that goes through the city of Córdoba, where I was born and grew up. There are certain parts that are just like a very tiny stream, but other parts of the Suquía River that are a bit larger, and those ones I like the most.
Nice. So, as we progress through our careers, we have role models. I've had them when I was younger and still have them now. So do you have a role model or a mentor that's someone who inspired you in a career in water? And can you tell us a little bit about why they've influenced you the way they have?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I've been trying to think about it. I think that because I've been in the water sector for very long time now. I've had multiple mentors that have influenced me in different parts of my career. But the one that has been a constant has been my father. My father, Pablo, he's a one of the directors of Avina Foundation, but it's a big organization working in sustainability and innovation in Latin America and other continents as well. And he was the one that first introduced me to, when I was a teenager, to water and encouraged me to join a youth NGO at the time when I was 15 years old. He is now more linked to the innovation agenda within Avina, but for a very long time he was in charge of the water agenda. So while I was doing my first steps in the water sector, I always had his advice, and I still have, even if he's now focusing on other topics as well, other sectors. But I am still very inspired by him and what he does, his vision, his strategic thinking as well. And yeah, I would say my father.
All right, that's really nice. What's inspired you to pursue a career in water? Was it him, or were there other points along the way that made you choose this career?
I think that I was trying to remember if I ever decided that consciously. I now decide that I'm going to work in the water sector and all. I don't think that ever happened, but it was more like things spontaneously coming my way that would push me towards the water sector. I started when I was 15 in this youth organization that is called Eco Clubs, that works in sustainability, climate change, and other environmental issues at the community level. And the first ever project I was ever involved with when I was 15 was a march and an awareness raising campaign for the World Water Day. So now it's looking back, it's fun and it's symbolic, right? That it was the first thing that I did, having no idea whatsoever that then I would dedicate my life to it. After that, I joined the Water and Youth Movement. There was this platform of different organizations in Argentina working with water and also environment more in general. I eventually became coordinator of this platform. But it was, I think, when I started working on the field with access to water, when I was invited actually by Avina Foundation as well to integrate the team that would create the Set Zero program, which is a transboundary program that works in the Gran Chaco region in the north of Argentina, Bolivia, Paraguay. It's a collaborative platform where we seek to scale up water projects through multilateral collaboration. So it was through that process where I started working in water as a human right and becoming aware of the needs of how, the inequalities related to water, the gender issues related to water as well. And at the same time, I was studying a degree in local and regional development. So which was a lot broader, right? I mean, included public policies and sociology and political science and economy. So it's economic. So a lot broader than just water or development, right? But my practice was always linked to water and youth participation as well. I mean, both were transversal topics that I've always worked with, water and youth empowerment. And I think it was when I won a scholarship to study my master in integrated water management in Australia, provided by the International Water Centre, that I sort of say, okay, now my CV has this stamp that says a water professional in a way. I'm probably that sort of determined. Okay, now I've done a master in this. Now, I'll pursue a full career in this. But before, it's always been like spontaneous projects and that were always related to access to water.
So, well, now you've really leaned into the water, access to water, youth, in terms of what you're doing now. So, Young Water Solutions, you're the co-founder and the director of this quite amazing initiative. So, what made you start it? What did it take to get started? How was that ride? How was that whole experience? And you're still going through it, but could you tell us all about that? It's really interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we started Young Water Solutions in 2015. Most of the co-founders we met through the World Youth Parliament for Water. And what we shared, both young professionals and more senior professionals involved in the creation of this NGO, we shared this vision that in the water sector, there was a lot of talk about youth empowerment and youth and how to engage youth, but there were very little tools, very little support provided to young entrepreneurs, to young professionals who had solutions in mind they wanted to implement, supporting the communities where they grew up or where they live, or communities in the countries, but they didn't have the access to the resources, both technical and financial, to do so. So we started Young Water Solutions with that mission of empowering young people to contribute to the solution of water and sanitation challenges, and that way contributing to SDG 6. The first couple of years, the 2015, 2016, we supported a few projects upon demand. We were learning also which kind of support was best to offer to young entrepreneurs on the field. Some of the first entrepreneurs we supported were somehow our own co-founding members, while we were learning the right recipe for it. And it was when we created the Young Water Fellowship program in 2017 that we started growing as an organization. The Young Water Fellowship is a program that provides training, mentorship, and funding to these young entrepreneurs who have ideas but would like to turn them into a social business and need support for that. This is sort of this incubation program. That walks along them and to help them achieve that dream. So since then we've been supporting 75 entrepreneurs on their teams, implement projects, create startups, and yes, we're still doing so very happy about that journey. And yes, it's been a ride, because we started just with a with a mission in mind, but without knowing exactly which shape that would take. And along the way, we've had great partners that allowed us to also that trusted that we could do that. For example, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, that is up to now our main funding partner as well. And without their support, as well as all our other funding partners, we would still be a very small organization supporting a few projects on demand.
Mm-hmm. So what if like the high, what's a high and what's a low that's happened during this journey for you?
A high, I think that's every time that we have, like every edition of our fellowship is a high, because we've been implementing these 1-year support programs in different scales, at global level, at national levels, at regional levels. And when we get to see how far our entrepreneurs go, right? I mean, they came to us with an idea, maybe a prototype, nothing more, but then they are able to support with the solution to, many communities, sometimes thousands of people. That's always a high, I would say, and that then it's wonderful, because every year we have one or more hikes, right? when we are finishing the program and after the training that is in person, where we started as well. And lows, I think that, I mean, the first years, especially of the program and the Young Water Solutions as an organization, it was always very challenging to take that decision of growing without having all the certainties about the support. For example, the first contract with SDC, we had to get all the co-funding, right? So we were signing and committing ourselves for a 3-year contract, and without knowing whether we would, get all the co-funding support that we needed. So those were quite stressful moments, and sometimes still are, right, when we are starting a new program and we are sort of jumping in a like to a pool, right, without knowing whether it's full of water or not. But there are always highs that come without lows as well. So it's I think it's the risks that we all have to take as entrepreneurs, right? I mean, I'm leading an NGO, and I'm an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur as well. So I'm going through the same path as our fellows, our Young Water fellows with their startups. Yeah,
exactly. So this is actually, it's had real impact on the ground. So, I mean, how does it feel to create something like this?
It's wonderful. I mean, on one side, we never claim the impact that our fellows have. I mean, we're enablers in that sense, right? I mean, these are their startups, their projects, and it's their commitment that translate into these, thousands of people improving their quality of life or their access to water, sanitation, through their many solutions. So we are there just to sort of have provided support that they need to start up. So we're very conscious of that, right? And I would never take credit for everything that they're doing, but it does feel it's very fulfilling as well to see them grow and to see them, and especially when now because of COVID it's not possible, but when I got the opportunity to visit them on the ground and see and talk to the people, right, and see, I hear from them directly how much their lives have changed because of now this support that is offered to them, and also talking to our entrepreneurs as well, and hearing how the opportunities that they are getting just because now they can prove the impact that their solutions have. That's amazing. So it's a beautiful, fulfilling journey. It's very challenging as well, because of we're still a small organization, so we're still struggling to meet ends every year, but like any small organization, and learning and trying to become also to diversify what we offer. So it's a very interesting journey. Yes, but it's I don't want to also say it's all perfect, right? And it's all like like a pink journey, because it actually has its ups and downs.
So this is a job you created with the creation of the organization. So what tips would you? And that's one way to get a job. So what are the tips that you would give for your peers that are looking for jobs in starting a new position or starting their own organization? Or what are the general job advice would you give to your peers?
I think that's something very important before anyone starts looking for a job is to know yourself and understand in which kind of environment you thrive. Because it's very different, right, to be in leading positions, for example, if you're not comfortable with that, or to look for jobs where you are a very small part of a super big structure when you thrive in an environment where you can create, right? Like, I mean, myself, I am like that. I thrive in environments where I can, turn an idea into a reality, where I can be creative, when I feel that my time has an impact, right? A positive impact. So I know I could not thrive in jobs where I feel that my opinion is never taken into account, or that there are lots of filters until maybe something is done with that idea. But there's people who thrive in those kind of jobs as well. So I think that if we consider that we spend most of our time, most of our life in our jobs, right? And it's a big deal. Then, I mean, what kind of job you apply to, even if you, of course, like you can change your career, you can. But I would say first, try to define what is that you want, and what is it that where would you be most joyful, you would thrive the most, and let that be what guides the decisions on where to apply, and not other more mental aspects of it, like money necessarily, or like or ambition. I mean, ambition should be linked to this fulfillment, right? And because otherwise, I think that it can lead. I mean, we also learn from this, right? Sometimes we need to apply to a job and then have an experience to realize that that's not for us, right? And then we change our choices. But I think that sometimes just like taking the time to do that process beforehand can save both yourself and also your employers, right? Like an experience that is not fulfilling because it's not the right place for you.
So, and how did you find that out yourself, that was so important?
I think that just by reflecting on, like, even if as I said before, in my case, it's been opportunities that have been, spontaneously coming my way. But I've always been paid to lead an idea that I came up with, in a way. It's how it's been, right? Like, since small projects to young water solutions. It's and now I often tell my friends when we talk about jobs. So I've never had a boss. Actually, I'm used to working in. It's real. I'm used to working in teams, right? In horizontal teams, or even if there's a hierarchy, that the hierarchy is not like. It's more like teamwork. And I've never had the experience of working for a big structure with a boss that tells you what you have to do, and you have to do that no matter what, even if you don't agree with. I don't have that experience. And at one point I was thinking, do I want to have that experience? I mean, do I want to maybe, have an experience working for a big organization, the UN or the European Commission or so on. And I think that, what I came up with is like realizing I could work for a big structure if I have my niche, if I have like a smaller structure within that big one where I can make decisions, where I can, I have some freedom to shape it. So I think that, that must be true for everyone, right? I mean, just like it's, like you have to know what you feel comfortable with, and where you thrive the most. Actually, it's not even feeling comfortable with, right? Because sometimes it's good to go out of our comfort zone, but it's more like, where do you think that you can be the most creative, that you can be the most joyful as well. And if you're not joyful, then you don't do a good job, right? It's you're miserable. So
All right. So you just gave a piece of advice. What's the best advice career related that you've ever received?
It's a bit in that direction. I think it's following your gut, following my gut in this case, trying to sense every time that there's a decision to make, career related, that like a feeling, how does this feel in my body, right? Do I feel excited about this when I imagine it, or do I feel stressed about it? And I just realizing that is a hint of what's to come. I think it's been probably my mom giving me that advice, but I think follow your excitement, follow your gut. It's a very important one. And also, I think something that I've learned along the way, that is trying not to take things that do not go as expected as a failure. We have this tendency as a society to think that, like mistakes or things that like you create. If Young Water Solutions tomorrow is meant to end because, I don't know, there's no more funding or whatever reason, that would be seen as a failure maybe for some, right? But there's always, I think that we need to also see that as stepping stones, right? Like towards learnings, towards, if I look back, I cannot think of any mistake I've made or project that has not turned out as expected, as like something that has not then led to an opportunity or to making things better. For example, if I had not made that mistake first, then I would have screwed up in a much bigger, when there was a lot more at stake, for example. So that's also important, right? That we take a bit the pressure off ourselves and just learn that, well, if things do not go the way that we expected, that then, that there are things to learn from that, and trust the process.
So on the flip side, is there any advice that you've ever gotten that's not been helpful?
I think that I've received, and I think that we all have received a lot of advice that is, is a projection of the fear of the people that give that advice. And there's a lot of advice, especially when it comes to our career choices, right? That is based on fear, that is based on assumptions that, we might disappoint others, we might not get enough money, we may, our parents will not be proud of us. I mean, there's so many different, fears involved that we often, and I've been also told, when having to make these career choices, I've been also given advice that was in that direction, right? I think that, it's very connected to what I said before about the joy and the gut feeling, and right, if we follow a positive feeling, right, it's like we're connecting to a higher vibration, and even if it doesn't turn out as expected, then it maybe it wasn't the right time or it was not meant to be, but the reasons for that choice come from a good place, from a loving place. And so it's not the same when those decisions are made out of fear.
So challenges, you spoke that, you've gone through them. So what's the biggest challenge that you've had in your career to date, and how did you overcome that?
I think that one of the main, I don't know if it was a challenge or it's just a very tough decision to make, was when I had to decide whether I would stay in Argentina and work from there or leave. I was at a personal stage of my life where I really felt that I needed to go abroad. Actually, before I found out that I was given the scholarship to study in Australia, I just decided to go on a backpacking trip in Asia just to clear off things. And I had a very clear intuition that was the way to go. But I also knew that then if I were to spend a long time outside Argentina, then coming back, it's not the same for your career as well. When it depends on if it's just 6 months or 3 years, but sometimes it's a decision to make, right? Do I want to stay here and work in the water sector in Argentina, or do we want to do it from abroad? And I think that, what I decided back then was just to follow my gut feeling of, the next move. The next move was to go on this backpacking experience, and that then led me to study in Australia, that led me to start, joining Young Water Solutions co-founding team, that led me to meeting my husband, which is a co-founder as well, which led me to coming to Belgium and working from here in the global south, right? But from Belgium, which is what feels right at the moment. But it was a tough decision because I could also, there are so many different needs related to water and sanitation in Argentina that deciding to work from abroad, it was at one point I felt a bit irresponsible to do that, but then I understand now that I never had the willingness to work for people that do not need my support. So the decision of always working to improve access to water sanitation, that was always there. It's just the place that has changed due to several circumstances. But now we are implementing this Young Water Fellowship edition in Latin America now, and I just came from Mexico, and it's amazing. And now I am still connected to my roots and my region, but just from a different place.
Yeah, that's great. So part of this podcast blog series is that we're interviewing young professionals, but then also senior retired professionals. And we hope the senior professionals are listening to this as well. So what advice would you give to senior water professionals to help them be better able to help those new to the water and sanitation field succeed?
I think that it's mainly about how senior professionals connect and relate to young professionals. I've often seen senior professionals talk to me or to my peers as from a position of superiority in a way, just because they are clearly more experienced, right? But I think that to be able to connect better to young professionals and give meaningful advice, they need to do it from considering themselves as considering young people actually as valuable, as not a blank page, right? Each young professional comes from a different background with experiences that shape the skills that they have and the contribution they can make, regardless of how much theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge they have, and as part of their career in the water sector. I don't know. For example, I have friends who have studied engineering, water engineering, having come from a developing country where they were fetching water for their family, right? And even a senior professional can look at them and say, okay, this is just a starting engineer, right? Knows nothing about how things work. But this person has a field experience that is a lot higher than the senior professional that has always worked from the academia, for example, right? So I think that the advice I could give is just relating as equals, from understanding that each has a baggage of experiences and knowledge that can share with the other. And the senior professional, of course, has very meaningful, learnings that like have he or she has learned in his career path. But they were, a few years ago, they were just in the same exact point where this other young professional is now. So acknowledging that and, talking from a space of humility, and I think it's very important for any meaningful connection to happen between senior and a young professional.
It's really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one other aspect of this back and forth between young professionals and senior professionals we're doing is we're having the young professional, ask a question to the next person we will interview in the series, the senior professional, and then that person will then ask the next young professional a question. So our next interviewee is Aaron Wolf from Oregon State University. So what's the question you would like to ask him?
As I know that Aaron works in and has a lot of experience in water diplomacy and conflict, I would ask him what advice he would give to a young professional who is starting, trying to develop his or her career in the water sector, but being in a conflict area, in a country where there's a lot of conflict. What advice would he give?
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we'll pose that to Aaron when we talk to him shortly. So Antonella, thank you very much for this. It's been really, really great. This is our first interview. I think we can consider it a success. So really appreciate your time and your insights and your contributions to the water community as well.
Thank you, Josh. I've also enjoyed it a lot. And I also want to thank you not only for this interview opportunity and this podcast, but also for your contributions to everyone's careers in the water sector. I don't know anyone who has been in the water sector for a significant amount of time and got jobs without looking at Josh got a job. So thank you for that as well.
No problem at all. So, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you.